You have to be careful about making a weird show or watching a weird show.
Hello, this is Gregory J. Smalley on Pod 366, a Weird Movies podcast, joined this week, as I sometimes am, by Rob Hubbard from
Hello.
Kansas City. No, Kansas City. You're in Kansas City.
No, Topeka.
Topeka.
Close to Kansas City. So,
Topeka.
hello, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well.
I was going to say Topeka, and then I thought, no, that's not right. Okay, Topeka, from Topeka, Kansas, where he will work on local independent movies as well as writing for us. Straight up, I'm going to have to maybe give a slight warning. I am recovering from a cold, and my sniffles and sneezing seem to have gone away, but I'm coughing quite a bit, so I may break into a coughing fit during the middle of this. I hope that doesn't happen. I sure hope I don't end up sneezing again. I think I'm on the mend. So, and the other thing is, I wanted to announce that next week we will have guests. Giles will be back in the co-host seat, and we will have Bradley J. Cornish and Dan Pullen from Movies from Hell. Giles and I guested on their podcast, and they're going to return the favor. And they introduced us to their podcast audience. We're going to introduce them to our podcast audience, and we're going to get the better of the deal because I think they have a larger audience. I'm sure they have a larger audience. So
I just started following them. Said they're kind of like, I guess, just watched on the Silver Globe, and they're really kind of like stumping for that. So it's just like, good.
They do traditional audio only podcasts. They don't do a video version. So we're kind of in that sense in different niches, since we try to push ours through YouTube and barely get any audio listens at all, and they get all their audio listens and no video. So maybe a slightly different audience to cross over there between us two. But they have their tastes tend to align pretty much with ours, so it should be a stimulating discussion. So that's next week, but this week we have a lot of movies to discuss, including 2 box sets and a surprising number of canonically weird movies that are out in some form on physical media, all of which have been released before, but they're in new versions with new stuff, and so that's all of interest to them. There was the list of everything, and now I'm going to take them away one by one until we're left with our first topic of discussion. So normally Giles Edwards would give a very intense and detailed description of the still, full of colors and textures and angles and stuff like that for people who are listening only and not watching.
Unfortunately, you will probably not get that level of detail in my description, but
do you want to try it, Rob?
I'll try. I'm game for trying. I will do my best.
Do this one, and then I'll do the next one. We'll alternate. See how it works.
Okay. What I'm picturing, seeing is, there is seems to be a young girl with her back to us here in the foreground, slightly out of focus, and in front of her in the background, again seems to be like in front of a cottage somewhere, some wooded area. I can see like trees in the background and what I believe is water. But in front of that house, between the cottage and the girl, is someone on a motorbike, scooter, um, which you normally see like making deliveries. There is like a small white receptacle at the back where you would put things to be delivered. The interesting thing is the driver seems to be a large cat, drawn in very cartoon style, who is riding this scooter and apparently is about to deliver something to the girl.
Yeah. And you know the name of the movie.
Well, for something like that, it's Japanese anime,
Yeah.
and what you're and the name of this movie is the. Sorry, I had to take notes. I had to do notes.
I'll jump in then. Ghost Cat Anzu.
Anzu, yeah, thank you.
We're assuming it's Anzu. Um, and so this is being distributed by G Kids, which means it's going to get a fairly good
Mm-hmm.
reach, but not as much as some of their other offerings. But they do tend to put stuff out in a wide swath of theaters. And I don't know if they're doing it for this one. All I've seen is an English dub. They also will frequently offer you the choice to see it either in the subtitled or the dubbed version. I've only seen the dub for this one.
Okay.
This one was on our radar mainly because Giles saw it at Fantasia and really liked it, and he was stumping for it, partly because he thinks and he's right, there aren't a lot of children's movies on our official list, and it's some diversity there when you have
Mm.
movies that you can show to kids to introduce them to the weirder forms of cinema. He let me read his poll quote from his review was the film lays on silliness and peculiarity thickly, and the picturesque animation maintains a perfect tension with a near flippant attitude suffusing the co-director's collaboration. So it's just about a little girl who's sort of abandoned by her father temporarily, and makes friends with a middle-aged ghost cat and his cadre of, frogs and gods and similar spirit characters, sort of giving you a Spirited Away vibe,
Mm-hmm.
but not nearly the same level of detail or style in the animation. This was actually, it didn't look like it from watching the trailer, but it's actually at least partly rotoscoped. And
Right.
maybe it doesn't look like it because the characters are so outlandish that they had to completely draw over whatever actor was in the scene.
I took a look at the trailer yesterday also. I'm intrigued. G Kids, usually anything that they distribute is pretty above average. I just recently watched the Mars Express,
Oh yeah,
that was out like a few months ago. Not for kids.
no,
One of the
great movie.
none of the rarest, but very good. This looked interesting, and from the little that I read about it, it's I think the trailer is I think it's kind of like pushing sort of this whack, for lack of a better word, wacky kind of vibe, which Japanese anime that's sort of like in this mode. I mean, anything where you've got like large cats and other things kind of like interacting in the real world, and nobody kind of and it's not a weird thing. That's uh, but some of the reviews seem to say that it also kind of, in terms of the humor, kind of gave like a Coen Brothers vibe, which sounds interesting. So I'm kind of anxious when this goes in wider release to kind of check it out.
Yeah, I would like to see it if I get the opportunity as
Mm.
well. As we said, Giles has already recommended it, so
Well, there's
there you go. You got a recommendation already. But let's go on to our next movie that's being released to even fewer theaters. And this one, so it's my turn to describe
Yes.
still as best I can. And so I'm going to probably do an even worse job than Rob. What we have here is a movie poster. It's hand drawn. It features a one sleeping person, and his face is and body are kind of crisscrossed by stripes as if they're slats, moonlight coming through slats in a window in blue. And he has a series of little figures above him that seem sort of like elements of his dream, including a wine glass with wine kind of flowing out at an unnatural angle, a bikini top, some coral, a woman's hand with a mouse, some sexy lips licking a popsicle, a fish, a jellyfish, and a lady's shoe. And it's called Dream Team.
Hmm.
And it's from Yellow Veil. So that's another reason we've anything Yellow Veil puts out, they're another one of those distributors.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime they put something out, it kind of catches our attention. A long time ago, when this first came out, I shared the trailer on um, our Facebook page, and uh, a movie critic who is not doesn't specialize in weird movies, uh, commented on it and said that this movie is a lot. And I don't know what that means. I just answered, oh, I like it when a
Big.
movie gives you a lot. And she, gave me a good, thumbs up on that one. So, did you get a chance to see the trailer there, Rob?
Yeah, I did, and I also sort of vaguely remember being mentioned earlier. I took a look at the trailer, and from the description, it's sort to kind of make it manageable. It seems like it's sort of a homage slash send up of 90s of like 90s erotic thrillers that used to be those who are, I guess, of a certain age can remember that in the 90s, after Basic Instinct came out, there were like a lot of movies in that kind of same milieu. Same for cable. Same for cable. We get like these somewhat sleazy or kind of like wanting kind of be sleazy type of shows dealing with crimes. I think Silk Stockings is the one that I vaguely remember, but they would be like on Showtime and Skinamax,
Mm.
and it seems that Dream Team, they're kind of like working in that same vibe.
Yeah, I think that's exactly
Yeah.
what they're. So from I'm going to read from the press release. Uh, Get ready for autumn's weirdest, wildest film, opening exclusively at Metrograph on November 15th for you New Yorkers. That's why we're talking about it now. Of course, it will be play somewhere else, but probably get a limited release and be on VOD mainly.
Mm.
Um, Again, they call it a wild genre pastiche into a sociological parable, a truly unforgettable and beautifully weird, in italics, cinema experience. So they're really pushing the weird angle for this one. And
Mm.
then the description is an absurdist homage to 90s basic cable TV thrillers. So you nailed that. Dream Team follows the episodic escapades of two hot, wet coast Interpol agents who uncover an international interspecies mystery involving psychic coral, a sexually suggestive scientist, and an invisible co-worker with a very vindictive streak. And so we'll have the trailer there for you guys to check that out. I should
And
mention,
one of and sorry, and one of the interesting things, one of the producers on this is on the T. I saw the TV Glow's director Jane Shaneberg. She's listed as one of the producers on this. So
Exactly. I was just about to mention that. That's
Yes.
another point in its favor. Uh, so, a lot of things in its favor. And we have Giles Edwards on the job with this one. He got a screener for this, or I
Oh,
assigned him a screener for this because I wanted to do something else. And I really wanted to see this, but he was looking for something to review. The screener came by and he grabbed it. So he should have a report on this next week in print.
okay.
And we'll see if it's as good as it seems like it will be. Okay, here's the next one. Do you want to describe this still there?
I think I'll take another shot at it. Okay, what we are looking at is is a gentleman, say a man in his 40s, with a sombrero on his head, looking directly at us, the audience, very stern. He is in the middle of seems like two buildings, and from the style of it, I would say that we would be in Mexico or somewhere south at the border. And in the sky above him are hovering are various figures of men and women. Um, and the title of this, which is Pedro Páramo on Netflix. And from what I've been able to find out, it is based on a novel by a Mexican author, Juan Rulfo. Rulfo. Sorry for the. I'm going to screw up the pronunciation. Apparently, it's a major work in Mexican literature, and was an influence on Gabriel Garcia Marquez, who's known for writing 100 Years of Solitude. And in that same vein, I've seen this described as magical realism.
Mhm.
So, and it's directed by Rodrigo Puerto, who's mainly known as a DP. He's shot Scorsese's last few films, Killers on the Flower Moon, Silence. He did Barbie last year, which I believe he was nominated. And as far as I can establish, I think this is his directorial debut. And he's also the cameraman for this. He does have did have an associate, but he directed and shot this.
That's kind of unusual,
And
guys. People don't usually shoot and direct at the same time.
no, Steve, so yeah, well, there's a few now. I think Soderbergh was like one of the first known, and then Peter Hyams started to do it like in mid '80s, I believe. So it's kind of a hard thing to do, but apparently there are a few who can do that. So
We did.
and
Oh, go on.
okay, um, like I said, this looks interesting. I guess it's based on a novel. Other than with the magical realist tag, I can't really say that much more about it. Although I'll say that I'm intrigued from what little I've seen on the trailer and from what I've read. Uh, it's intriguing. So,
Yeah, the trailer, which we will link, doesn't really give away a lot, I don't think, and it's not.
mm,
It's a very sort of drama-based trailer. There's not a lot of action or visual effects or anything like that. I'm getting the feeling that this gentleman is journeying back to this city, which represents the land of the dead, and that everybody there is actually dead.
ghosts. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
from what I say, he's in a literal ghost towns,
yes.
and looking for his father. So I get the feeling it's going to be sort of kind of going back through, so kind of maybe going back through his life and the lives of others, and like I said,
Right. So it's on Netflix, which means easy for most people to check out. Um, Easy for me to check out, so I should get around to seeing this. It's going to be one of those, it's going to be an art house, more art house
mhm.
um, directed. So if that appeals to you, hey, it's an easy one to get off your list. Um, I imagine it's going to be very high quality based on the sort of pedigree that
Yeah.
we have here. Okay, moving along.
Ah,
So here's one we can probably cover relatively quickly. I'll describe this still, and I'll do so quickly. It's a golden, huge city. Looks a lot like New York City, all in gold slash sepia tones. Maybe it's sunset or sunrise. Uh, on the far left, above the skyline, we are on one large building looking something like maybe the Chrysler building. There's a gentleman leaning off the building at an angle that seems like he's about certain to fall to his death as he stands on the ledge there with his arms held back. That gentleman is, of course, the protagonist of this movie, which is Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis, which we have discussed in great
detail.
detail. It is now on VOD, comes with a warning, however. Costs more to rent this on VOD than it would to buy a ticket to the IMAX presentation. So you're going to regret, uh, not seeing it in IMAX if you had the chance. It's $20 to rent.
A little less than the
A
IMAX
little
ticket,
less.
but about so probably less
Or,
than probably
or
less than what the blue so probably a little less than what the Blu-ray is going to be,
yeah.
which actually the Blu-ray should be out in a matter of weeks, I do believe. So
Yeah, and it is more than it cost for me to see it just in the theater. Although if I added popcorn, it would be similar. But hey, bring in two or three people. I always want to point out to people that when you see these new release movies coming out and renting for $20 a pop, uh, if you wait, if you can wait a couple of months, it's going to go down. The price is going to go down to something manageable. But yeah, at this price, I'd buy the Blu-ray. I'd probably wait and buy the Blu-ray. Um, we did almost a complete episode on Megalopolis with Nadia Robertson, who acted in the film as an extra and was actually a really, really cool guest.
mm,
Having an extra uh, talk about the movie was just sort of gave you a perspective uh, that you wouldn't get from anybody else. Like it's different from the perspective of a director. It's a very ground level. This is what I saw going on, and these are who I interacted with. It was very, very cool, and she was very enthusiastic. So I thought it was a very fun episode with her talking about this movie. And I think we all liked it, although I would probably all have our reservations about it as well.
have you been following sort of like the post theatrical like reactions
Uh,
at all, or
well, I know a lot of people have made jokes at its expense, if that's what you mean.
yeah, it's kind of this weird lot well, I guess a lot of jokes about it, and it's sort of like this meme, almost sort of this meme that kind of came out of this like one little scene with Adam Driver. um I don't know, pretty I guess what you would call film Twitter, or that I don't think people quite still know how to, I guess, how to address it. I've seen like other reviews, like the guy who wrote for AV Club, Nathan Rabin, who just who does the thing My Year of Flops, who just completely trashed this movie. Um, other people are kind of split on it, so it's, I know,
I,
curious. So kind of,
I don't know. There's a large contingent, which is exactly where I find myself, which is that uh, it's a mess. It's lavish. It's over the top. It's so much. I love it. I love it. I can't really say it works or it's good, but it's just so much fun to see a director put everything on the line and not care about falling on his face and embarrassing himself potentially. And that's where I find myself. And I think there are a lot of people that are in that particular camp.
mm.
What
I'm kind of
about you?
curious. So, well, I'm still very much on it. I'm kind of curious now that it's on on demand. I guess if more people who didn't want to go out to the theater will kind of see it and check it out. Um, and I have the feeling that probably the reaction to it may change a little drastically over the next few months or so. We'll see.
I think, oh yeah, I think over
Like
time.
a lot of things.
It's I think it has cult movie written over it. I think there are going to be a small number of people who really, really connect with it and who are going to do, deep amateur analysis on YouTube of it, uh, as opposed to our shallow amateurish analysis of it that we did on YouTube. Uh, but I think
Well, who wants to work that hard? I mean,
who wants to work that hard? But I definitely recommend anybody seeing it. Nathan Raven is correct that it's a flop technically based on the amount of money it made, right? So, um, but sometimes flops are lots of fun.
yeah. I mean, I think people are I guess in terms of like the budget and the look of it. I Again, is it a good movie? I think it is. Some can't, I guess some may not think so, but I think there's a lot more behind it that I think that people aren't really taking in consideration, and that's kind of like when I'm considering that they have more time to kind of like watch it and actually kind of like think about what's behind it. Then those I think it'll be more appreciated because it's
I
like
think a second viewing would certainly bring out some more angles for it from
three or
my
four
perspective.
viewings. Mm.
I'm going to skip over the next one. We'll come back to it, but go to this one,
Maniac.
which you can describe.
Okay, thanks. Thanks. Well, we're seeing a uh very good graphic art of a man. I guess he's sort of posed as being handsome in the
Hmm.
time. A man carrying a young woman who apparently is unconscious, being draped over his arms, which are linked to carry her. She's in a slip, and over this is a title called Maniac, with additional things: true and authentic, nothing withheld, a subject seldom discussed, strange loves exposed. Uh, and this is from Kino Classics, and it seems that there's a subheading at the very bottom called Forbidden Fruit, the Golden Age of the Exploitation Picture, Volume 17, in a continuing series, from the Something Weird archives.
Yeah,
So
and they should have got to this one before number 17.
I actually checked this out. This is on Tubi.
Yes.
And reading it, I recall I've heard about this, and since it was on Tubi, I decided, oh, what the hell, because from it's made in the
Like,
1930s. I think 1934, I believe, is the. And yeah, I watched it this morning. It's not that. It's only about an hour.
you're struggling. I love this movie.
Well, that's the thing. I loved it too, but I loved it too, but I just there's like another kind of in the series a movie called Cocaine Fiends,
Uh,
um, which remember seeing in college. And it's kind of the same thing. It's like this when they would do like the horror, like these exploitation films, they would kind of do the horrors of like whatever else. And the in this one, it seems to be the roughly about mental illness because like a framing there's like a framing device where you have all these quotes about mental disorders by authoritative sources. And I believe that this is supposed to be like an illustration of the I guess of these mental ills, all built around a very loose adaptation of Edgar Allan Poe's story The Black Cat.
yeah, but
Yeah.
you're giving it a little too much credit there because it's more like
Yeah,
that's an excuse.
well, I think that's the filmmakers giving themselves a little. It's entertaining. Uh, it's thoroughly entertaining and just kind of for being a 1930 film in the early 30s, does a few things that I wouldn't expect anybody else would have the guts to do with us.
Yeah.
Um,
People are always shocked that there's a topless scene in this movie in 1934. So they just, they were
it's
not
fun.
concerned about the Hayes office at all because they weren't showing it in uh, mainstream theaters. They were just taking it around on a roadshow tour and showing it in tents and things. But um, man, is it wild. And it features every kind of bad acting you've got in the world, from the worst, hammiest overacting to people that can barely get their lines out with any kind of emotion at all. The full spectrum of horrible acting is in this movie.
And it does say like what one thing mentioned looking at the cast. I remember one of the actresses that had listed was Phyllis Diller, and I was just thinking like, what? Okay, not it is not the comedian. It is not that Phyllis Diller that is known in main popular culture. Um, there's probably a reason for that, but I will say this is educational. I think if you would pair it like with another film about other evils, I think marijuana, it would make a great double feature. I just kind of say that you have been warned.
The,
If you just,
the, the drug in this one is super adrenaline. They shoot somebody up with super adrenaline.
it's this weird kind of mad science. Well, this mad science. It's where this mad scientist thing starts off with, and then it does. I'm not going to spoil for those who might be interested. Not going to spoil anything, but does this twist maybe like a third of the way in, which is kind of like okay. Um, but yeah, you run through pretty much all the mental disorders that the text will occasionally breaks in to explain. Um,
And it
it's fun.
actually, oh, go on.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, let's see if we can get this one in
Okay.
2 minutes,
Yes.
because it
Fine.
actually reuses some footage from this one, which is another sort of canonically weird movie. Maniac is a canonically weird movie, and this one is as well. Since we're running low on time, I'm not going to describe it in detail, but what we see here is a promotional set for Häxan with copies of the cover, which has a demonic face on it, and a book that comes with it, and some stills from inside. Häxan, of course, I have it on a Criterion Collection version, but now it's out on another. It's from who's it from?
Radiance.
Yeah, with different
Yeah,
special features.
this is a 2-disc release from Radiance Films. That's also been putting out some really good stuff. This has 4 cuts of the film. It's
Mhm.
a go, which has, and those cuts are like you have the original and the 3 other cuts are with different musical scores.
Right.
Uh,
And we're about to run out of time. We're gonna actually do a little pause and come back, and we'll finish up this and our 2 box sets. Uh, so if you don't mind, see you in just a minute.
I,
And we're back. We'd stopped on while we were discussing Häxan, and we kind of rushed through it. I think we got through just about everything we had wanted to say about it. We did not really introduce the movie. We just assumed everybody was familiar with it. Of course, it's the silent documentary about witchcraft. And I say documentary, it was like an early hybrid documentary because it was,
mm,
recreations of scenes. So there was it's sort of a little narrative and a little documentary, very
like
forward looking for its time, and full of some shocking imagery and some demons, done with very simple masks and tricks and lighting that just look, they really kind of look scarier than anything anybody's come up with since.
oh yeah, it still holds up. Well, I guess be, I think as you saw said previously in Maniac, there's some sections depicting the devil and his demons, the devil being played by the director himself, so typecasting. It shows up as stock footage in quite a lot of things having to do with the occult. So
Yeah.
uh, it's pretty effective for being an old silent film. So
So we did run through the special features, but let's just recap. There's 3 scores, none of which I've heard before. And I'm kind of a fan of silent movie scores. I love how
mhm.
different versions and people put their own spin on it. So I would be almost interested in it just to hear 3 different scores. Several alternate cuts made by different people, including the famous one with William S. Burroughs narration, and a jazz soundtrack.
Yes, and actually there on this release there's actually an alternate cut of that, which is known as Witchcraft Through the Ages. um it's a slightly longer cut, just longer by a few minutes, but it's but the narration is in French.
Mhm.
uh so that's there. In addition, uh it it does have outtakes. I know the Criterion release also had like 5 minutes of outtakes. On this release, it kind of it doubles that. There's like
Mhm.
it says it's like 12 minutes. There's like a screen test kind of like of the director kind of like testing the devil costume. Also new to this, it has a different commentary than the Criterion,
Mhm.
and it has a featurette featuring Guillermo del Toro, talking about the film. So
Yeah. So, and it comes with also a big book, which you can see if you're watching on YouTube. That nice looking hardcover book and these postcards. Uh, it actually probably it's limited to 6,000 copies, I should say. So, I don't know if they'll sell out, but you might want to, if you're really, really interested, you might want to, jump on it before they're
um,
all gone.
worth
It looks like
it's
it
worth
top,
checking it.
it looks like
Sorry.
it tops the Criterion version. Honestly, I'm probably gonna stick with the Criterion version and not double up. But
If you had I would say if you're the type that has to that's into double dipping, this
mm,
it would be worth having. Like if you have the Criterion version, I think it'd be worth going for this version. Um, you say on Amazon this as all region. Just a caveat, because looking it up, what I could find is that it seemed like this was going to be just a UK release, which would mean it would be region B. Um, so if you have like access to to play any region disc, it's it's definitely worth double dipping for. Uh, if you don't have an all region player or something, I'd probably check it out. So check and make sure that that it is indeed an all region release.
yeah, yeah, a little bit of caveat emptor is gonna go into
Mm.
play there. Because Amazon does say region A, B, and C. However, their information is not always correct. Um,
And if you don't go out and get an all region player.
yeah, get an all region player.
You're going to need it, especially if you're following films on this site. So,
Yeah.
but
All right, so
uh,
that's the second canonically weird movie that was released. Let's go through. We're gonna save
hmm,
maybe the biggest box set for last, but let's do this other box set first because I haven't seen any of these movies, but they are all of interest to me. I believe you said you'd seen one there.
yeah.
Do
Okay.
you want to go for the description there of the cover?
No, so I'll give it a try. And there is a background of what looks to be a swirling vortex, circular lines going, with occasional flashes of what appear to be lightning, around this collection of portraits, I can say, of various, I guess, Asian figures, for lack of a better word. There's on the right hand side, there's a guy in sunglasses, striking a pose, cro arms crossed. So it seems like he's getting ready to get into some action. Below him is a woman with fangs pointing. I would say she's probably in the probably like a vampire or vampire like. To the left of her, kind of centered, uh, appears to be, I would say, robot android, or at least that's kind of like the impression that I would get. To the left of it is a young man pointing a gun. It's so typical Asian action film. Above him is another, well, slightly older man, but still kind of on the young side, holding a sword pointed at somebody. So I would say that's probably something in the set in the medieval period of Japan. And above that person is a man holding a sword in a headdress. And in the center of all of this is a very beautiful young woman. I believe the name of that actress is Amy Yip.
It
And
is.
she would be from one of the films featured in this called Sex and Zen. I guess this.
I was going to say, looking it up, she is in at least 5 of the 6 films.
I guess the official title of this is Golden Harvest, Volume 1. Box set is having under the heading of Supernatural Shockers. And this has like I believe it's like 6 films released by I guess made by Golden Harvest Production Company. Asian Asian action, your typical kung fu action. Although this, from what I understand with this release, so most of the releases aren't just sort of like the kung fu action. There's also a lot of eroticism. I know Sex and Zen is what they would call was in what they call Category 3 films that were released in like late 80s, early 90s, with a lot of sexual content, with a lot of sexual and violent content. Um, and yeah, of those films, I've heard of the others: Erotic Ghost Story 1, 2, and 3, uh, Doctor Vampire, and Robotrix. I'm assuming that maybe in the center there is probably Robotrix looking silver. Um, yeah, I can't say, I don't really have too much to say about it. From what I recall of Sex and Sin, it was very good, um, very graphic. It was very popular in in the early 90s if you had access to that tape. Uh, what do you have to say about it?
I have to say it is I don't get the marketing I don't get the marketing angle here because it's called Supernatural Shockers, right? And there's a
Mhm.
supernatural element to all of them, but they are all sex movies. And doesn't sex usually sell? I mean, I would put that up front.
Well, it seems like the audience that would for these films, I don't really think that leading that they're supernatural.
Yeah.
It's a selling point, but not quite as big as selling point as sex. But it's Shout Factory, so that might be a factor because I know
Yeah.
in overseas releases, I think they kind of like go more for the sexual angle because
Hmm.
that's what they're at. That's basically anyone looking for these films. They're going for the sex. They're going for the sex. They'll stay for the action. Some of them are like very good story, well made. But let's be honest. I remember when we saw Sex and Zen. Uh, they we were there for quite something else, and I can't really say anything because it's pretty. From what the scene that I recall, was pretty graphic,
I was
but not
wondering how graphic that scene
but
is.
not surprised. Well, not surprised. It's not. It's more soft core
Yeah. Right.
rather than hardcore. Um, well, I'm trying to think how I can put. There is one. I guess one scene. Is the scene that I remember. Uh, Also was a part of a much later film. Also in the I think late 90s. Anyone who's um, anyone who's seen Requiem from a Dream can probably picture it, especially if you're thinking, especially if you remember the end of that movie.
Okay. So yeah, these are all, I believe, Category 3 films.
Mm.
Yes, I think they're all Category 3 films. They're all sex. Sex and Zen is the most famous one. I have this book, which is probably not going to display correctly. It is
There we go.
it is titled Sex and Zen and a Bullet in the Head. It came
Mm.
out in the 90s and was about um, new wave Hong Kong cinema, which is all this stuff. Every one of these movies is covered in that book. So that I've read about all the movies and seen none of them. Sex
Mhm.
and Zen was one of their top 10 picks for a Hong Kong new wave genre initiate to jump into. Um, and
It
then
was huge. The following for it was, and the demand was huge. I guess if you were able to if you were able to get access
they weren't
to the
easy.
tape.
The Erotic Ghost Story series, they say Erotic Ghost Story 2 was better and weirder than Erotic Ghost Story 1. I think they describe a scene where a demon in there cuts his wife in half and has relations with the lower half while the upper half floats above him, complaining and nagging. Uh,
Oh, okay. When I said cut in half, I was picturing something else, but that makes way more sense.
um, And then Dr. Vampire is more of a vampire movie. I think they're Western style vampires rather than the
Mm.
hopping vampires of China. And Robotrix, um, they had something to say about, they had positive things to say about all these movies.
Yeah, I had overall even though there's uh like a high sexual content from what I can recall hearing about any of these titles is I don't really recall hearing anything bad about them. And I guess having Shout Factory release it means it just kind of means it's a much easier if you haven't seen these but have heard of it. This is a much, I guess your chances of being able to access it is like better now that you don't have, especially since you don't have to go for like an overseas release or import it. So
And they're all apparently get pretty good ratings. So
mm,
we have 20 minutes to discuss what's probably the biggest
plenty
release. And
plenty
this
of
is
time.
actually coming out next week. I think it was originally listed to come out this week. I put it on the schedule and then it was
Mm,
pushed back. But uh, 13 discs. Um, I
yeah.
we have a promotional still up here. It has the box cover on it, which has a naked woman facing away from us, her lower half hidden by green flame, hands outstretched towards the heavens. And then there is a book, which is in sort of gold leaf on black with the title and some twisted trees rising towards a moon. And then there are the 13 discs included in this set uh, at the bottom of it. It's from Severin. It's called All the Haunts Be Ours, a Compendium of Folk Horror, Volume 2. And Robert reviewed Volume 1 for us. This volume, in a way, seems even better because there are two canonically weird movies in this one. I believe the other one might have had two. It had the other one had
There's been
the other one had a field in England, so it had one.
mhm. And this one has well, my God, has in terms of canonically weird. Did we have I should like looking at was the Beauty of the Beast part
No,
of the or is that part of the apocalypse?
it's just List Canada. The two are
But
November,
Okay.
and the two Canonically Weird films are November, the Estonian movie, and one for who we've interviewed the director. One of our most popular episodes was interviewing Christiane Savaski. I probably screwed up her name, for Blood Tea and Red String, which is also on here and has been hard. That one's been hard to find a little. So that's a
Yeah.
good one.
His previous release was just on a DVD. That's yeah, it's been out of print. I believe this is the first Blu-ray release for
Yeah.
Blood Tea and Red String.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I was going to say of those canonically weird, at least several of these have been, I guess,
Mhm.
have been mentioned at least like,
Yeah.
as possible candidates or
Right.
capsules.
Yes.
Um, and I think I described like the first like volume one. It would be basically a college semester course. This is the this is the other semester. This at least is the other semester. Um, I know people. I know people have gotten this shipped out already. Some people have gotten this. It's going to be like maybe December, early January before I get my own copy. But this seems to be like even better than volume one. Well, volume one they set like this really high bar, and volume two said they've upped that bar. In addition to like November and Blood Tea and Red String on this, the other some of the other films is Latan, by the French film by Jean Pierre Macchi. Um, has been mentioned. The again beauty two films from Czechoslovakia by the director Jiraz Hers, Beauty and the Beast, which has been issued on Blu-ray before by I think second run. It gets its first U.S. release here, and it has different extras that are different than what's on the UK disc. And another film of his called The Ninth Heart. And actually, both Beauty and the Beast and The Ninth Heart they were shot at the same time concurrently. Um, I believe the commentary on Beast said that they would shoot Beasts in like the daytime, and then like in the evenings, and they would shoot Ninth Heart. Another film that's been mentioned that we've mentioned here on the site, The White Reindeer, Finnish, so film from Finland, um, and those are available. Um, what else is on here?
Robert,
It's
can you see, I'm
Thank
sharing
you.
a different screen
Yes.
here on Severin's site. I'm just going to scroll through these without commentary while we talk, but they have a ton of images from every movie, just to get people interested while we
Go
converse.
through.
Do you want to go through just the list of titles? Do you, uh, I mean, I can find them and read through everything.
Yeah, yeah, I can. Well, in addition, there's a lot of debuts going here, I guess, for for our purposes. Uh, it's a very mix of films from various countries. I think the U.S. is a little better represented on Volume Two because it has two films making their debuts. Um, I guess the one is The Enchanted. Uh, there it is. Which is like I don't want to say a lost film from like the early '80s, but it's hasn't really been seen since its release. And also making its debut is Who Fears the Devil, which is an adaptation of stories by Manly Wade Wellman and his character of Silver John. Uh, and it's also been known under another name called The Legend of Hillbilly John. And about that, it was scheduled to come out years ago from Kino, and then it just kind of like stopped. There was like some sort of rights issue, and they addressed that as that what's being released under its original title that went out theatrically under Who Fears the Devil, and it's a slightly different cut. As it was acquired by a producer called Jack Harris, who's famous for like distributing The Blob in the late 50s and other films. He apparently that when he bought that, he recut the film, added a prologue and an epilogue, and changed the title. Um, and apparently, when the producer of the film, Barney Rosenwig, who's known more for like producing the series Cagney and Lacey, this was one of his earlier projects. He still had the rights to the film, and that's kind of like when Kino announced that they were going to put out the other cut. That's, I guess, he intervenes, and that's not the film. So they basically went to him, and it's making its debut with a lot of with a lot of features. Other things that are going that you have from the UK, you've got some new titles. To Fire You Come at Last, paired with an old favorite, Psychomania.
Yeah, we should
I think,
mention
which is mentioned on the
Psychomania.
site, I believe.
Psychomania is one we have been requested to review, and for some reason we've never gotten around to it. I don't know why. It's just fallen through the cracks, but it's definitely something that belongs on our radar. A mix of kind of a UK biker movie with frog worship. So
It's great. So, and again, like the last set, there's a good mix of like of familiar titles and things that you haven't heard of. There's film again, like films from Finland, Saudi Arabia, Poland, um, and even though there's not some that I haven't that you may not have heard of, but I just looking at the features, I don't think anyone's going to be too disappointed with the set overall. There's some, I think there's some films that some will like better than others, but as a whole package, uh, this is impressive. This is impressive.
yeah. Let's see, we have uh we discussed the let's see, we discussed Psychomania and To Fire You Come at Last, The Enchanted and Who Fears the Devil on disc 2. Disc 3 is Finland and Canada, White Reindeer and Edge of the Knife. Disc 4 is Born of Fire, again from the UK, and that's on there alone. Disc 5 is Eel Island from South Korea and Scales from Saudi Arabia, which are two I've never heard of. Some from Japan and Thailand. Back,
Nico, Vengeful Spirit.
Vengeful Spirit, and Nang Nak from Thailand. So yeah, all over the world. Indonesia, Sundul Bolong.
And also
yeah.
Oh, no, sorry, Gary. Also to mention, like the volume one, this also has a documentary, and the documentary on this is the Susanna, the Queen of Black Magic, about the actress, and I guess the Sunda Belong is is one of the films that she's featured in.
Okay, I didn't realize that was a documentary.
Mm.
Okay.
So
makes sense because that's a 2024 title, and So that makes sense.
I think that's one of the newest. I think probably the newest film that's featured in this package. So
the two Czech movies from hers, Beauty and the Beast and the Ninth Heart. Then let's see, disc 9 has Poland, something Demon from Poland, which seems like it should be familiar, but I don't. Does that ring a bell with you?
No, that's again something. Again, like one of the discoveries.
Yeah.
The only thing paired with November, which I have seen before, and also a very good film. Also, very good film. And disc 10, Latan, paired with Blood Tea and Red String.
No, I say Litan. Kind of Shane Wilson reviewed it for our site, didn't recommend it, and then Giles, who is usually much more open to things, wrote in the comment section that he thought Litan belonged in the Apocrypha. So we got a divided opinion there. Have you seen it?
I have seen it. I think it does. I understand both reactions. I think it does belong there. And actually, this again, like being the first available North American release, actually, like for Radiance, also recently put out a box set of Maki's film of his films, of which Latan is one featured. But I believe that there's I believe 4 or 5 features in that box set. So those who see this, if you like Latan or find it interesting, there are his other work is available to investigate. Although being Radiance, that would be Region B, so it's probably easier if you have like an all region player. So.
Okay, moving along to disc 11, we have one from Argentina and one from Spain. Not familiar with either of those. Nazarena Cruz and the Wolf and Aquelarre. You familiar with either of those?
Nice. Neither of those. I believe that it may have gotten a mention in the Woodlands Dark and Deep documentary on that's in volume 1. But overall, this first not familiar with the films, although like it sounds intriguing. So,
disc 12 from the Old Earth from Wales, and that looks like that's on a disc all to itself. Disc 13 is City of the Dead from the UK, 1960. I doubt that's the zombie film called City of the Dead. I don't.
That is one with Christopher Lee. It's also known under the title Horror Hotel. It's been readily available through through the years. Although looking at the special features, I think it pretty much captures almost everything that's been available on those older releases. So, and it's a good film.
And then that's paired with one from the Philippines, The Rights of May, which another one I know nothing about. So pretty good mix of things you'd never heard of. And I like that still, by the way. Baby with a really big head, big forehead. Really good mix of 2 ones that are pre-approved for our canonical list, several that we're interested in, 1 or 2 that we're interested in but haven't gotten around to covering, one that's kind of divided the critics, and a bunch of unknown things. I think anybody would probably find, at least anybody who's listening to our podcast and interested, has gone this far, will probably find at least half the movies in there worthwhile.
Right.
Would be my guess.
At the very least, half of that. This volume 2 also comes with an additional booklet which is I guess a book of folk horror fiction where they went to established writers like Ramsey Campbell, Kim Newman, and and essentially like folk horror short stories,
Mhm.
which come along with the release. So I mean, yeah, you're going to, if you have any sort of interest, there's going to be enough here to keep you busy for at least a couple of months. Um,
Yeah, it is, it is pricey, but at over $150. But considering all you get, um,
still a bar still
yeah,
a bargain, consider if you had to like even like finding like maybe like the 4 or 5 films that you can say people will generally like love and go out, you'd end up paying about that much, so just to kind of to get good editions here, with the 13 disc, like the amount of films. I
supplements
think
the,
supplements, it's definitely, if you order from Severin, it's like $180. And I believe that includes postage. So that's more than reasonable, especially when you're looking at things, well, probably will come up on a future podcast, but Severin's also doing the Russ Meyer, so
oh
is
yeah.
also doing what they call the Vixen trilogy next month. So
Severance picked things up pretty well.
they,
Oh, yeah.
so
It's a good time for physical media, and I think the part of what makes it good for us is it's our kinds of movies get these lavish releases. Not, they don't bother with Marvel. People are going to watch Marvel stuff on streaming. They
mhm.
don't need Criterion type releases, but these kind of cult films get these really cool releases. And so we,
There's
yeah, go on.
oh, so go ahead. How much time do we have? How much time do
We
we
have a
have?
minute.
Oh, go ahead. I'll save it for another.
Save it for another podcast. We did manage to get through everything in 2 sessions. There was a lot to talk about with 2 box sets. I did not cough once, I don't think, and I don't think we made a lot of errors. And I just want to thank Robert for coming on. I know he's very passionate about the folk horror set, and we wanted him to talk about it. And next week, Giles Edwards will be back with me and our guests, Bradley Cornish and Dan Pullen, for some lively conversation about a whole new set of movies. So thanks again, Robert, and thanks everyone out there.
Thank you, Greg. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.
Weird. Yeah, I guess that is the word for it. Weird.